like rivers of water. Turn my heart, O Lord, by your hand, till my whole life flows in the river of your Spirit, and my name brings honor to the Lamb. Turn my heart, O Lord, like rivers of water. Turn my heart, O Lord, by your hand, till my whole life flows in the river of your Spirit, and my name brings honor to the Lamb. Lord, I surrender to your work in me. I rest my life within your loving hands. Turn my heart, O Lord, like rivers of water. Turn my heart, O Lord, by your hand, till my whole life flows in the river of your Spirit, and my name brings honor to the Lamb. Lord, I surrender to your work in me. I rest my life within your loving hands. Turn my heart, O Lord, like rivers of water. Turn my heart, O Lord, by your hand, till my whole life flows in the river of your Spirit, and my name brings honor to the Lamb, and my name brings honor to the Lamb.
Father, over to you.
Okay, so a very good evening. Thank you for making time to be with us as we complete the Triduum this evening with talk and sharing by none other than Father Stanley Goh. And his topic is on be reconciled to one another as a vocation and mission. Some of you may really know who Father Stanley is, but those of you who do not know him, we call him the baby priest because he was ordained only in January the 28th. So he's newly minted, and we are very happy that he's able to share with us. He was a teacher before he joined the Jesuit and trained in spirituality, and also was trained in Rome to get his licentiate. So we are happy to have him to share his knowledge and views with us. So please welcome Father Stanley Goh.
Thanks, Colin, for that. I realize that I have big shoes to fill in the last 2 days. Colin and Sundaresh have laid a path that is a little difficult. So what I will do is I'll put on my Zoom slippers, my flip-flops, and I'll follow in these big shoes. And hopefully with the flip-flops, the shoes will fit. So before we begin, let's pause for a moment in prayer. We pause for just a couple of seconds to remember one thing that we're grateful for this day. And as we come together in gratitude for all the graces that we've received this day and at the end of this week where we do feel tired, we ask the Holy Spirit, come Holy Spirit, come and enkindle the fire of our love for you. And we ask you, O Spirit of God, that you help to orient all our actions by your inspirations, and that they may be carried out with your gracious assistance. And that all that we do, say, hear, and put into our hearts this evening may always begin from you, and through you be happily ended. And we ask the intercession of Saint Joseph, whose feast we celebrate today, as well as his spouse, our Blessed Mother, to intercede for us as we say, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Okay. Right, so as they say, sometimes let's get this show on the road. So I'm going to be talking about vocation and reconciliation with a bit of a subtitle, Be Reconciled for Mission. And you might be asking, how come? How come I need to be reconciled? Reconciled with what? Reconciled with who? And what is this mission? And what is this vocation? You know, quite often we hear vocation, vocation to priesthood and religious life. Vocation is what God is calling us to do. And that's what we're going to be talking a little bit more about. A couple of things. First thing is, you may notice that you can go into the chat, but the chat is only to us, the host. So if you do, I'm going to use that as a means of you doing some Q&A. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. If there is time at the end of the session, I will try to deal with them. If not, then I will find some way of putting some answers together so that it can be posted somewhere. So please write your questions as they come along. Don't worry, I'm not going to look at them until the end anyway, so you won't be disturbing anyone. So put your questions in there. The other thing is a little bit of a caveat, because I have been talking to various groups and sometimes I reuse my slides. So if you find that my slides are slightly familiar, well, just be patient, because I feel some of this material is useful for more than just the immediate audience that I had. So just be patient. I might put a new spin on things, maybe. All right, so vocation and mission. There are three parts to this session that I'm going to be talking about. The first one is reconciliation as restoration, a restoration of ourselves and a restoration of ourselves before God. That's very much similar to what we heard in the first day when Father Colin was talking about our reconciliation with God, how we are able to be reconciled with God through the sacraments, through all the ways that we can, where there are ways in which we can pray, ways in which we can move ourselves to get back together with God and to feel God's mercy. The next one is I'm going to talk a little bit about the nature of our mission. Who are we? What is God calling all of us, every single one of us, all these beautiful children of God? What is God calling us to do? And we'll talk a little bit about that. And the last one would be our vocation and reality. What is the reality of our vocation? So we know the nature of our mission. We know that we are restored through reconciliation. How is this going to come through in our life? And I'm going to try to hopefully give some hints or some suggestions on how vocation, not vacation or staycation, which seem to be the buzzwords these days, how this vocation can be our reality. So when we talk about reconciliation and restoration, I want to, so just take note of the scripture passages. I'm not going to be reading them out, but I am going to be referring to the two of them. So the first one is Mark chapter 5, verses 1 to 20, and that's the healing of the Gerasene demoniac. You know, the one where Jesus goes to him and he says, "We are many, for I am legion." Oh, that's quite scary. And then Jesus says, "Get out of them, go into the pigs," and the pigs all jump into the water. And then the man is healed. I'm going to focus on that last bit where the man is healed. The second one is John chapter 4, verses 1 to 42. And that's some of us might have heard a few weeks ago, the Jesus meeting the Samaritan woman at the well. I'm not going to go through that, but I'm going to show a video that's a very creative modern interpretation of that. And we'll talk about that in a bit. So this is the last part of the last three verses of the Gerasene demoniac episode in Mark. And I'll just read this part. As he was getting into the boat, the man who had been possessed by demons begged him that he might go with him. But Jesus refused and said to him, "Go home to your friends, tell them how much the Lord has done for you and what mercy he has shown you." And he went away and began to proclaim in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and everybody was amazed. It's a very interesting thing here. Somebody wants to follow Jesus, and Jesus said no. Why? I can see two things in here. The first thing is that it's all from what Jesus said. The first thing is he said to the man, "Go home to your friends." This man had been apart from the community for so long. Because of his condition, he was cut off. He was not part of the community. And so Jesus wanted him to be reconciled with not just himself, that he was in his own mind, but to reconcile with his community. Go home to your friends. So he's restored back to his community. And from there, once he has the support of his community, he is able to tell the wonders of God. And so that's very important. So his mission was to tell the wonders of God, but he could not do that mission until he was healed himself and restored to the community. So if we look at this, we want to think about, what does reconcile mean, reconcile, and what does restore mean? So we probably know all this. I mean, you know this better than me. But so the word means to go back, to return. So there's this sense of going back to somewhere, back to where you should be, perhaps. And then there is this sense, to conciliate in English is to bring together, to unite. So to To reconcile is to bring back together, to reunite. So that man was reunited with his friends and family. And restore comes, I believe, from the Latin word stare, which is also Italian. So this is the one time I can actually remember something in Italian and it sticks. So to stand firm, to be there. Stare in Italian is sometimes used in place of the verb to be. So to be as well. So to return back, to become firm again, to return to where there is some sense of firmness and return to where your foundation is. To restore this man to his community is to allow him to find his foundation again. And so the restoration is to union, the man's restoration is to union, the restoration to favor with God, and also restoration to grace, allowing us to, when we go for the sacrament of reconciliation, at least this is where it's clearest, where we are feeling God's grace coming through us, the channel of God's grace coming through us in a clean and unbroken way. The other thing is also that it allows us to build up and repair and renew ourselves. That's what this sacrament, that's what reconciliation is actually all about. So reconciliation is a sense of restoring us to where we should have been before. It's a restoration to wholeness and a restoration to the community. And that's the whole point of that episode from Mark, that man was not whole. He was not himself. If you remember this, and I use this mosaic from the Basilica of Saint Apollinaris in Ravenna. It's beautiful in that you can see that man, and you can see the symbolism of these early medieval art is very interesting in that Jesus looks like the size of a normal man, and the demoniac who's kneeling before him looks like a hobbit. He's kind of small. Hobbits are significant because I'm going to be talking about hobbits later. You all know that I'm a nerd, so I will indulge in that and talk a little bit about hobbits later. But so this man was separated from the community and separated from himself. He was not in his own mind. He was possessed. And so the reconciliation here was first a reconciliation to himself. Jesus, through the grace that he gave of the exorcism, returned this man to wholeness. So he's a whole person. But a whole person is not enough, I feel, because God told us that we should be living in community, and all of us live in community. And so the restoration to him, in this case, the reconciliation and the restoration is a restoration to the community as well. And so there is this sense of, with these two things, wholeness of self and wholeness of the community, wholeness to the community, the man regained his humanity. He is considered fully human, because before that, the people didn't think that he was human at all. So here he has regained his humanity. And that's beautiful. And that's what reconciliation is all about, to be able to recognize that I am a human person, a beloved child of God. The basis of our humanity, the basis of what we believe a human person is before God. So reconciliation involves recognizing not just my own humanity, but the humanity in others. And that's connected with what we were hearing yesterday about how we can reconcile with each other. So I reconcile with someone else, even though I don't like that person. And that is true. We do have times where I don't like that person very much, but I will reconcile, because when I look at that person is a fellow child of God. I can't deny that. And therefore, that drives me to want to reconcile with that person. And so we recognize that we have a common humanity. And within this sense of a common humanity is this, that we have common weaknesses. We're all sinful people. And that's fine, because I can't judge someone for being sinful because I'm as sinful as that other person. So we have a common weakness, and we also have a common reliance on God. So if you look at it as a triangle of sorts, one person's here, one person's there, and God is at the top of this triangle. This triangle is whole, and so we're not just looking at these two people trying to argue with each other, but when there is this common reliance on God in this triangle, there is that extra connection, and we are able to connect because we see where we recognize our common humanity. And so as we think about this, I'd like to show this video. It's approximately 5 minutes, and it's a poem. It's based on a poem that was written, inspired by the Samaritan woman at the well. And it's very modern, and it's quite, the American accent is quite clear, as in it's quite heavy. So I hope everyone can hear this. Okay.
I'm a woman of no distinction, of little importance. I'm a woman of no reputation, save that which is bad. You whisper as I pass by and cast your judgmental glances, but you don't take the time to look at me or get to know me. For to be known is to be loved, and to be loved is to be known. And otherwise, what is the point of doing either one of them in the first place? I want to be known. I want someone to look me in my face and see more than just 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, and 2 ears. But to see all of me and all that I could be, all of my hopes, loves, fears. But that's too much to hope for, to wish for, to pray for. So I don't. Not anymore. Now I keep it to myself. And by that, I mean the pain. The pain that keeps me in my own private jail. The pain that has brought me here at midday to this well. To ask of a drink is no big deal. But to ask it of me, a woman unclean, ashamed, used and abused, outcast, a failure, a disappointment, a sinner. No drink passing from these hands to your lips could ever be refreshing, only condemning. And as I'm sure you condemn me now, but you don't. You are a man of no distinction, but of the utmost importance. A man of little reputation, at least so far. You whisper to me and tell me to my face what all those glances have been about. You take the time to look at me, but you don't need to get to know me. To be known is to be loved, and to be loved is to be known. And you know me. You actually know me. All of me, everything about me, every thought inside, every hair on the top of my head, every hurt stored up, every hope, every dread, all of my past and future. You know all that I am and could be. You tell me everything. You tell me about me. That which is spoken from another would certainly bring hate and condemnation. Coming from you, it brings love, mercy, grace, hope, salvation. I have heard of one who was to come to save a wretch like me. And now here in my presence, you say, I am he. To be known is to be loved, and to be loved is to be known. And I just met you, but I love you. I don't know you, but I want to get to. I must run back to town. This is way too much just for me. There are others, brothers, sisters, lovers, haters, the good and the bad, the sinners and the saints, who need to see what you've shown me, to hear what you've told me, who needs to taste what you gave me, and to feel how you forgave me. To be known is to be loved, and to be loved is to be known. They all need it. We all do. We need it for our own.
Right. That was very powerful. I'm very moved every time I hear that. It's based on a poem. It's a read poem called "Women of No Distinction" by Chris Kinsley. There are many versions of this on YouTube, and I find this is one of the best. And I think it's what the woman at the well says in this version: to be known is to be loved, and to be loved is to be known. And you can see her encounter with Christ, how Christ knows her, loves her, that prompts her to love back. And you notice the change. The first, she was closed up and said, I'm closed up in my own private jail. I feel only the pain. And then suddenly she sees joy, hope, and love and salvation. That comes from reconciliation. That movement that you saw, even though it is a poem, but it's a movement that is very real. And this happens to us on sometimes on a daily basis. We're all yearning to be known in this way, to be known and loved in the way that she was describing. And sometimes our mission, when the Lord is giving us our mission is to receive this knowing and loving, and to go out and know and love others as well. And that, I feel, is the crux of this whole video. The Pope Francis, in his most recent encyclical, talks about this. What this woman was at the well was talking about is an encounter. So in Fratelli Tutti, he says, life, for all its confrontations, is the art of encounter. I frequently called for the growth of a culture of encounter capable of transcending our differences and divisions. So reconciliation is knowing and loving. And knowing and loving is encounter. We want to be able to encounter each other. And it's not just hello, hello kind of thing. Hello, hello, bye-bye, hello, bye-bye. That's not encounter. Encounter has some depth in it. To be able to truly know somebody so that we can love them. And so this encounter is mission. So when we go out, when we talk about evangelizing, when we talk about spreading the good news, it's all about creating opportunities for this kind of encounter. We want to be able to encounter each other and encounter the Lord in each other in this way. And so this this part where we're talking about reconciliation as restoration to the community, because the more we are able to encounter each other, the more we are able to build this community of faith, hope, and love. So that image that I have there is quite interesting, because in the past, you couldn't go to the sacrament of reconciliation all the time. It was only once a year before Easter. And so and then it's quite public. It's not like now where we can go in the privacy of a confessional booth or a confessional room and make our confession and leave feeling the grace of God. Here in the past, the restoration to the community was public. You, as a penitent, would kneel outside the church, and then you would make your confession outside the church, and then only after that, then you can get up and go into the church to celebrate Easter. So there is a visible restoration to the community. I'm sure all of us are heaving sighs of relief that this isn't happening now, but it's still, the idea is still there. We want to be able to be restored to the community as that the healed demoniac was as well. And once we are restored to the community, then we want to be able to love and serve the community. So this is this two-pronged thing, reconciling first for mission. And later on, we're going to talk about how the mission is all about reconciling in itself. So that's the first part. We talked about reconciliation. The next part, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the nature of our mission. And here I will refer to the first two verses of Isaiah 61 and what this mission is all about. This Isaiah 61 is, for me, to me, it's one of the most important verses in the Bible, outside the Gospels, of course. And this was the first reading I chose for my ordination mass, because I feel that this reminds me what ordination is all about. Isaiah reminding me, but also I think it's words that are for all of us, where we hear the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because He has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. We hear this repeated mostly in Luke chapter 4 as well, where Jesus goes to proclaim the first time in the synagogue in Nazareth. But here, this is our mission. Good news to the poor, release to captives, healing, freedom, all these things, very, very important things. That's what our lives as Christians should all be about. What Isaiah is telling us. But how are we going to do that? Here, when in doubt, I always find, when in doubt, go back to the Catechism of the Catholic Church. That's you can't go wrong with the Catechism of the Catholic Church. That's why it's there. It tells us what we need to know about the faith. And so I'm quoting from the Catechism in this part where it says, Jesus Christ is the one whom the Father anointed with the Holy Spirit and established as priest, prophet, and king. The whole people of God participates in these three offices of Christ and bears the responsibilities for mission and service that flow from them. So what this is saying is that, so our mission and service is to become, to hold and recognize what this threefold office of prophet, priest, and king is all about. So prophet, priest, and king. So some of us might be going, and the first time I heard this as well, the short story to this is the first time I heard this was when I had to teach this to a confirmation class. I said, huh? What? We all have to be prophet, priest, and king? No, the priest is there. I don't need to be a priest. I'm not a king. And prophet, no, very shy, like cannot. But so how why is the Lord asking us, so you have to be a prophet? Then you read about the prophets. Prophets always get into trouble. You remember the prophet Elijah? People wanted to kill him. He starved. He had to run away, and he was um, the prophet Jeremiah was hunted down, and they wanted to kill him. So I don't want to be a prophet. Okay, so I'm a priest now, so this a little bit difficult to run away from that. But in the past, before I even thought about this, no, I don't want to be a priest. There are priests there; they're doing really good job. Let them do the job. Same as I'll attend. And I mean, I don't really like leading people. It's too much trouble. I like to receive instructions and I'll do them. Best thing in the world. But Jesus is telling us we all have to be prophets, priests, and king. And so I tried to understand this, and this was how I helped some of my later students to understand this. So I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the Lord of the Rings. It's one of my favorite fantasy science fiction novels. J.R.R. Tolkien, along with C.S. Lewis, are among my two favorite authors ever. And so Tolkien, we know, is a very, very staunch Catholic, and the Catholic themes in his books are very, very strong. And so we can see in The Lord of the Rings that there is a prophet character who is Gandalf, who is this wizard who brings news to all the people. We also have the character of a priest who is Frodo, who is the one who bears the ring. He bears the weight of the main mission in the Lord of the Rings. The ring is this ring that has to be destroyed because there's too much power and it causes a lot of evil. And so he was the priest. He bore the weight of the ring more or less by himself, with only his friend Sam Gamgee, and he was able to do this. So that was his role, to care for others, to complete this small mission in caring for others. And of course, there is the king, who is a real king, who is the leader. So when you see these images of prophet, someone who brings messages, a priest who heals and has the ability to bring people together, as well as the king who leads, we remind ourselves that we need to do all this as well. And so just a little bit of explanation in this. I know if you're familiar with the Lord of the Rings, all these, the light bulbs will go. If you're not, then this is the more standard kind of definition, if you will. A prophet is a messenger and witness for God, one who calls others to conversion. We're all called to do this. We're not called to go to the street corners for us, maybe to go to the square in front of Farah Market and tell people, repent, the gospel, repent and believe in the gospel. Perhaps not in this day and age. And I don't think the law would actually allow us to do that. But in our lives, perhaps just to think about this, how are we witnessing for God? How are we, in the ways that we are, in our acts of kindness, how are we able to witness to God? How are we able to help other people to reconcile with God and with themselves? Calling others to conversion. Conversion is not just about believing God. Conversion is about converting to be good, to be better. So that's what the prophet does. We have priests who are bridges between God and humans, priests who take on the role of caring for and loving others. Parents, as you care for your children, that is a priestly role that you're doing. Teachers, as you are caring for your students, that is a priestly role that you are fulfilling, to be able to be that bridge, to be able to be that person who cares for others. And the king is where we lead others in our earthly missions, where we live the virtues of Christ. And so parents, I mean, we go back to this idea, to parents, as you lead your family, you are fulfilling this kingly role. If you are a leader or a manager in where you are working, you are fulfilling this leading role. And so these, being prophet, priest, and king does not mean that you actually have to be an actual prophet, wearing white robes, carrying a stick, and telling people to convert. And you don't have to wear a crown to be a king. You just have to lead people into conversion towards the Lord. And so if we see that, and we go back to that passage from Isaiah, we see that the prophet brings good news to the poor, the king proclaims release to captives, and the priest heals and brings recovery of sight to the blind. So there are all these elements within this scripture passage as well, but that allows us to see what is why we need to do all this. We want to be able to proclaim the good news. We want to be able to care for others. We want to be able to build up the reign of God. And in order to do this, it sounds like a tall order, but we are all given graces to be able to do this. And at the heart of this is reconciliation, because if we're not reconciled with ourselves and with God and with others, our proclamation of good news is going to ring hollow. Nobody's going to listen to us because they see, this one not reconciled to himself, I don't want to believe him or her. If you don't care for others, if you don't show the love for others, people are not going to listen to you. If you're not going to be able to be reconciled, you can't care for others very well. If you're not going to be reconciled with others, people are not going to listen to you as you try to lead them into the kingdom in whatever way that you are in. So we want to be able to, if we look at this whole 3 days of sessions, we want to first be able to reconcile with God in order to proclaim and to be authentic and to be authoritative as we proclaim the good news. We want to be able to reconcile with others so that we can care for them. If we are reconciled with others, we are more able to care for them. And we want to be able to build this community to support reconciliation. We feel reconciled with ourselves and the community. We want other people to do the same. And that brings this whole thing into a virtuous cycle that allows more reconciliation to occur as well. And so we come back to Fratelli Tutti, and what Pope Francis was writing in that, and he says, we Christians are very much aware that if the music of the gospel, that's a beautiful image in itself, the music of the gospel ceases to resonate in our own very being, we lose the joy born of compassion, the tender love born of trust, the capacity for reconciliation that has been the source in our knowledge that we have been forgiven and sent for. Beautiful words centered, in my opinion at least, around this capacity for reconciliation. Our capacity for reconciliation, so both to reconcile with others and to be reconciled ourselves, comes from our being forgiven by God and sent out on mission, sent out as prophet, priest, and king, sent out to proclaim, to care for people, and to build the kingdom. So that's all based on this reconciliation, the ability, our capacity for reconciliation comes from this sense of being forgiven and being sent as well. And we are called to be reconcilers as well. So not only are we called to be reconciled with God, we're called to be reconcilers. Matthew chapter 5, the Beatitudes, blessed are the peacemakers. So we want to be able to be not just reconciled with others, but to be agents of reconciliation who are able to proclaim the good news, to serve each other, and to build the kingdom. And so that's all in this whole sense of what it means. So we are reconciled for the mission to be prophets, priests, and kings. And so that brings us to this final part of this talk. Our vocation and the reality. What exactly are we supposed to do with this vocation? What exactly are we supposed to so how are we going to live out this sense? So we've been reconciled. We've heard how we can be reconciled. We've heard how we can mediate this reconciliation with each other. But the reality is this, and I come from this, and I guess I realize one thing, that if any of you hear anything that I talk about, and you hear me talking about anything, you'll hear me say the L word a lot, love. Because I think that's at the heart of everything. If we don't love, we heard in that video, to be known is to be loved, and to be loved is to be known. Our vocation is to know and love. And our vocation is, when we say our vocation is to know and love, and we also hear from in the first letter of St. John that God is love, that means our vocation is also to know and love God first, so that we can know and love our neighbors. So that's exactly what is said in the Gospel of John. This is directly after the washing of the feet, where Jesus tells his disciples, I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also should love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, and you, if you have love for one another. So there is that song, right? The a new commandment. Oh yeah, I'm allowed to sing because I'm here alone. So the one that goes, a new commandment I give unto you, and it ends with and by this all men will know that you are my disciples. So that's what this is all about. So the commandment, love God and love each other. So there are all these. Some years back, there was a spate of this: keep calm and carry on. It's from the Second World War. But I think I like this quite a bit: keep calm and spread the good news. So the good news. What's the good news? The good news is to love one another, and the other good piece of good news is that God is love. Because the more we love one another, the more we know God. Because if God is love and we are loving others, then we are bringing God into the equation. We're bringing God into the relationship, and that's wonderful. And that's what we're supposed to do. That's what we're all called to do. And so we come to this very, very beautiful passage in the first letter of St. John, where it says, it's written many times, God is love. But here it's John says, God is love, and those who abide in love abide in God, and God abides in them. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. How beautiful is that? For fear has to do with punishment, and whoever fears has not reached perfection in love. We love because he first loved us. The commandment we have from him is this: those who love God must love their brothers and sisters also. I put this here because I think it's very important for us to recognize that we don't love God because we want God to love us back. We love God because we have felt God's love, and we're loving because of that. Because God has loved us. And it's this experience of God's love that we don't experience through we talk about God's love, and sometimes we think we feel, oh, I need to go into the chapel and ask God, please please let me feel your love. I want to feel, and we think that sometimes it's this sense of it will come and our heart will just suddenly grow two sizes bigger because we feel God's love filling our hearts. That can happen, and we know that saints have felt things like that. Saint Teresa of Avila wrote about these ecstasies as well. But we usually, normal people like us, how we feel God's love is through other people. We love because we have been loved. I love others because I've received much love from my parents, from my friends, and my parents who taught me how to love are the images of love that I have. And so I'm always grateful to them because they have taught me, they were the ones that taught me what love actually looks like. And so my ability to love is thanks to them. And so I didn't feel God, the Father, like telling me, oh, this is my love, but it was God loving my parents such that they were able to give love so freely to me and to each other and to everybody else. So that's how I learned, and that's what love actually is, and that's what reconciliation is all about. Because love moves us into action, and we are able to act because we have been loved. We act from who we are. We don't act from somebody else, some other trying to be someone else, but we act from exactly who we are. And this who we are is this person who is loved by God and who is able to receive this reconciliation, to be able to reconcile with others. I'm going to, sorry, it's a little bit of text, but I think I'm putting all these because these are such beautiful texts that allow us to think about love and reconciliation so much more. This is from another encyclical, Deus Caritas Est, from Pope Benedict XVI. And this was written about 16 years ago, but still so relevant now. In the gradual unfolding of this encounter of love, it is clearly revealed that love is not merely a sentiment, not just a feeling. Sentiments come and go. A sentiment can be a marvelous first spark, but it is not the feeling of love. What is this feeling of love? It is a characteristic of mature love that calls into play all our potentialities. Everything that we are is called when we start loving. And it engages the whole person, so to speak. Contact with the visible manifestations of God's love can awaken within us a feeling of joy born of the experience of being loved. So that's what I was just talking about how I have felt this. Contact with the visible manifestations of God's love with each other awakens within us this feeling of joy born of experience of being loved. And this experience of joy is that experience of reconciliation. So why am I talking about love so much when I'm supposed to be talking about reconciliation? Because love and reconciliation cannot be split apart. It can't be divorced, because the experience of love and the experience of reconciliation or rather the experience of reconciliation is the experience of love. When we go and experience, when we reconcile with someone who we have been estranged with for a while, that's when we feel love for each other. When we go into the sacrament of reconciliation and we feel that God has been loving us even though we turned away, that is this feeling of love, to be known by God and to be loved. And so if you look at this, it engages the whole person. Love engages the whole person, and this whole person is also a prophet, priest, and king. And so how are we going to do this? So I use some ideas from Deus Caritas Est, from Pope Benedict XVI, as I talk about this next part, because this part is about, so you're a prophet and a priest and a king. So how are you going to be able to exercise this ministry really? Just now I was talking about, okay, so you build a kingdom, you proclaim the good news, but what exactly are we doing? Pope Benedict XVI had a very nice way of looking at it. So he says, he used 4 words. So this indicates who we are. And he used 4 words. The 4th one I'm going to talk about here. So martyria, liturgia, and diaconia. And there's one more coming. So I always, I know this is a bit of a running joke for those who tune in to Father Jerome's YouTube channel for Mass on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you will remember that I always say that I only know 6 words of Greek. And today I'm going to be sharing with you 4, 2/3 of all the Greek words I know. I think some of you might be thinking that I can't count. That might be true as well. But so martyria, liturgia, and diaconia. And so what these are, so the prophet, priest, and king are who we are. We are prophets, priests, and kings. And these Greek words that I'm going to be explaining very soon are the expressions of what being a prophet, what being a priest, and what being a king is all about. So martyria, the word martyr comes from martyria. Martyr means witness. So martyria means witnessing, so proclaiming the word. I'm going to be talking a little bit on this in a bit. So as a prophet, and we already talked a little bit about that, proclaiming the word. So this is very similar to what we just talked about. But the other part is liturgia. Liturgia is where we come, it means celebration. It's where the English word liturgy comes from, a celebration. And so what we want to do is liturgia, as a priest, we want to be able to celebrate, be part of the celebration of the sacraments, and be able to celebrate some sacraments ourselves, not sacraments of not the official 7 church sacraments, but be sacramental in our life. Sacramental meaning allowing God's grace to be shown visibly. That's what we are invited to do here. And diaconia, the word deacon comes from diaconia. Deacon is someone who is a servant. And so diaconia is, as a priest, as the kingly office is for us to be able to do, the kingly office is the office that pushes us to lead and to build this ministry of charity. And the final one, and you can see how this all links. Right in the beginning, I was talking about reconciliation and restoration to the community. And in Deus Caritas Est, this all comes from Deus Caritas Est, by the way. Deus Caritas Est says that all this martyria, liturgia, and diaconia bring us towards koinonia. Koinonia is communion, towards this sense of communion, community and communion. So that's what, so all these, reconciliation is the root and the fruit of all of this. We need reconciliation to be able to do all this. We need reconciliation also to be able to build this community, this parish community of ours, this Christian community of ours. All these are part of this sense of what it means to be a prophet, priest, and king. And so I'm just going to talk very briefly about each of these. So martyria, the proclamation of the word, is proclaiming the good news. I like this phrase. I'm not sure who, I can't remember who said this, but I think it's very, very apt these days, proclaiming the good news, using words where necessary. I feel this is, when we're talking about proclaiming the word, it's best to be able to proclaim the word in how we live. good Christian lives. People look at you and say, "Ooh, you're good, you're Christian. Christians must be good." And so that kind of logic, I think, happens when we are able to proclaim the good news effectively. The other thing to think about is this. Um, Remember Pope Francis in Fratelli Tutti, he was talking about done to the music of the gospel. If the music of the gospel is alive in our lives, then we are able to be to have this capacity for reconciliation. Um, I like this idea, and actually this image can actually be for all the rest of them as well, and for the one in community as well. So as we dance to the music of the gospel, we allow the music of the gospel to come into our lives, for us to be able to dance to the gospel, and that's a beautiful image in itself. We try to invite others to the dance. So proclaiming the word is not so much about telling people, Bible thumping and everything. It's we must know the word of God in order for us to live it. That's important. But why not invite, as we dance to the music of the gospel, we invite others to dance with us so that they don't just know the gospel, but they're able to live it, to dance. There's this beauty in dance, in being able to feel this movement. It's not just about something that's happening in the head. It's about moving. I myself have two left feet, but I'm always in awe of people who are able to dance, because um, there's this beauty there. It's how, it's this gift of grace to be able to do that. And I think that's what our lives as Christians is about. We dance this dance, and some of us are able to dance more gracefully, some of us can just do this, but then we still invite others to do this, because that's something that nourishes us, some of us at least. um, Celebrating the sacraments, celebrating love, reconciliation, and our return to salvation. So uh, the priestly office, we sometimes say, oh, the priest will do all that, but I think there is a lot part of us who facilitate it. So the priest is there at the altar, celebrating on behalf of the community, yes, but the community does a lot as well. um, I've often said, so as Father Colin said, I'm a baby priest. So this baby priest enjoys celebrating Mass at the parish immensely. Why? Because I'm there with the community. It's such a gift to be able to be with all of you, or just the 170 of you who are there, but to be able to pray and to have this meal at the altar with everybody else. It's such a privilege to be able to do this, and to see. Well, okay, so I mean, I'm guilty of this as well. I have fallen asleep at Mass before, so I mean, full disclosure, I have in my life. So I mean, it's fine, not all the time, but but the important thing is we are together in the community. We are returning to salvation, and it's nice. It's so beautiful to see families coming together, celebrating love, celebrating this reconciliation every time we go for Mass. And I guess the other thing would be inviting others to celebrate with us, to be able to share this celebration. So that's part of our priestly office as well. And the last one would be the ministry of charity, diaconia, receiving and giving love to all who are in need. That's always important. And laboring with God for God's people. I always talk about this, laboring with God, because I think it's something that comes from Saint Ignatius. He talks about laboring with God in creation. God continues to create. God has a creative role on earth still, and we are invited to labor with God. I feel that this is such a beautiful image because one is we're not alone. God is always inviting us to work. So sometimes when we are working, when we're doing ministry in church, when we're working, when we're looking after our families, we find so difficult and everything. But when we think about this, sometimes our ministry of charity is it's not us laboring alone, but God has gifted me this mission as a parent, as a teacher, as someone who works in a particular place, as in ministry. God has given this mission, and God has invited you into that mission, not to labor alone, but to labor with God and the other people who are working there. And if you think about that, that allows for that reconciliation as well. That allows for that reconciliation with the sometimes suffering, difficult times that you have. And it allows you to, when troubles happen in ministry, and that always happens with, in families, in ministry, at work, and everything. Troubles do happen. You can't avoid it. We're all children of God, therefore we're all imperfect. But if we remember that we're laboring with God for God's people, that allows us to be that much more forgiving first, and more able to give of ourselves fully in love for others. So that's that little shift, and I feel that's what reconciliation does. It allows us to shift that, make that shift to be able to say that I'm laboring with God, I'm not laboring alone. And the last one is koinonia, community, communion. How are we moving towards communion? This is expressing Trinitarian love. So Benedict XVI talks about this a lot, about how love in the community is an expression of love in the Trinity. What the theologians refer to as the intra-Trinitarian love, that is perfect love between the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. There is perfect love among the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit in the Trinity, and that is the model for all love. So as we are building our community, we take the Holy Trinity and the relationship among them as the expression of love. I think it was last year I wrote something in the church, St. Ignatius Church Bulletin, about on Trinity Sunday, about this, about joining in the dance of the Trinity. And I think that that image of the dance, music of the gospel and all that applies here as well. We want to dance with each other in the way that the Trinity dances with each other. And so we want to create this community that is reconciled with God, with the self, and with each other. So I'm going to show a very short video clip, and given that I did talk a little bit about Lord of the Rings just now, I'm going to be showing a very short, it's about 2.5 minutes it's an exchange between Frodo and Sam. And the whole point of this may not be immediately apparent, but just give it a bit of time, and it will get better. So just give me a couple of seconds to get this online. All right, let's get the volume up. Okay, here we go.
I can't do this, Sam. I know.
so wrong. By rights, we shouldn't even be here. But we are. It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo. The ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were. And sometimes you didn't want to know the end. Because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing. This shadow. Even darkness must pass. A new day will come. And when the sun shines, it'll shine out the clearer. Those were the stories that stayed with you. That meant something. Even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Mr. Frodo, I do understand. I know now. Folk in those stories had lots of chances of turning back, only they didn't. They kept going. Because they were holding on to something. What are we holding on to, Sam? But there's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo. And it's worth fighting for.
Right. And so this is a quote from there. Even darkness must pass, a new day will come, and when the sun shines, it will shine out the clearer. Folk in those stories had lots of chances of turning back, but they didn't, because they were holding on to something. Then Frodo, who's given up hope, says, what were they holding on to? And Sam goes, there's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. I think this helps to bring a lot of things together for today. There is some good in this world. I think this has to do with everything. There is some good in myself, and that's worth fighting for. And if you look at it, this can be reconciliation within myself as I'm trying to reconcile with God. And I realize there's some good in me. And this good is worth fighting for, fighting against temptations, fighting against all the things that I don't like about myself, but it's worth it because there's some good in myself. There's some good in my community, the people around me. It's worth fighting for that. Because why? Because when we see that whatever darkness that we see in ourselves and around us, it will pass, a new day will come, and the sun, and when that comes, the sun shines all the clearer. We don't give up because there is always this hope for reconciliation. There's always this hope for something better. And I think that is the whole point. That is, to me, the beauty of our faith. That there is at no point in time will we be, if we truly believe, there's no point in time will we lose hope, because even though it's going to be as small as a mustard seed, it's still there because we have been given salvation, we have been given love, we have been given all this. We have to be able to recognize that all that is the good that is worth fighting for. There is some good in this world. There's good within us that makes reconciliation worthwhile. And so reconciliation, my whole this is sort of the summary slide for this evening. Reconciliation starts and ends with God. It involves ourselves and it involves the community. So we heard that in the first part, restoration to the community, restoration to ourselves. It involves us being prophets, priests, and kings. That is our being, what we are called to. And it involves being witnesses, celebrating this love that we have, serving others in charity, and forming this community, the materia, liturgia, diaconia, and koinonia. And all this has to be animated by faith and hope. Everything is animated, like what we heard in that. There is some good, it's worth fighting for. That's the hope, the faith in the salvation that we already have. And it's rooted, again, always in the love of God. So if you don't remember anything, if you're like me and you tend not to remember a lot of things, that's all we need to remember. Reconciliation starts and ends with God, involves ourselves and the community. We are prophet, priests, and kings. We're called to proclaim, to lead, and to serve. And we are called to lead lives that are animated by faith and hope, and always rooted in love. Okay, so I have before I go on to the closing prayer, I do have one question, and I will take that. How do we reconcile with someone who does not want to be reconciled with us? We make the first step, I believe. We have to seek reconciliation, but reconciliation, as always, is a two-way process. We seek the reconciliation, and we have to be patient. That's why it's animated by faith, hope, and love. So it comes from our love. It's animated by the hope that the reconciliation will be reciprocated, but we don't expect it. We hope for it, but we don't expect it. And I think that's part of the importance of what we want to be doing. We want to be agents of reconciliation, but given that we know that we are all creatures, children of God who have our weaknesses and everything, we can't expect this to happen overnight, or even sometimes at all. But we continue to pray, and we continue to hope that something can happen in them. But we have to make that first step. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity to be able to speak with all of you. I see the possibility of another. How do we put down our baggage and embrace reconciliation? I think that would be Lenten talk number 4. I don't think I'm going to be able to. That's really quite a lot to do. How do we let go of our baggage? There are many ways of doing that, and I guess, given that it's Lent, a good first step is to go for the sacrament of reconciliation. So so I think that's what I can say at the moment, and I will leave this, and perhaps I will try to. What I will do is I'll bring that into prayer, and possibly try to respond to that in a fuller manner, later. There are some more questions coming, but we are moving towards the end. I will take this last one, and okay, there are two questions there. Let me just take a look at them. Right. You're not letting me off easy. You're giving me all the difficult questions, and it's So anyway, I know. Raymond's laughing because he said, "Yeah, you're asking for it." Yeah. So I was asking for it, but I'll give it a shot. forgiveness come before reconciliation. I think forgiveness is part of reconciliation, and reconciliation is part of forgiveness. It's the same thing. In order to reconcile, there has to be forgiveness. I have to allow somebody to. I have to. If somebody has wronged me, I have to allow that wrong to move aside before I'm able to reconcile. So yes, forgiveness. It may not come first. It may come together with. I don't think it's. I don't think we can actually say it's one coming before another. I have another question about if people actually seek to persecute us, like the Pharisees plotting to destroy Jesus. How do we try to force reconciliation with them? I'm wondering sometimes whether we need to do more of a bit more of self-preservation first sometimes to be able to protect ourselves. If someone is trying to persecute you, there has to be some sense of you, if that's really the case, to be able to protect yourself in some way before you are able to reconcile. You can forgive them. You can move away from them so that they don't hurt you so much. But sometimes it takes time to be able to allow this reconciliation to happen. Okay, so yes, I also need to go for confessions. So that is true. So we are going to end now. Thank you for your questions. Thank you, and I'll try to do something about all this, and perhaps write that up in one of my later bulletin write-ups. But thank you so much for having me. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you. Thanks, Father Colin, for inviting me. And we will end with a very short closing prayer that I will read, that's on screen now. So, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit. O Lord, God of all things, you created us in love so that we may love. Pour forth into our hearts a desire for your mercy, and inspire us to seek renewed encounter, communion, and reconciliation. May our hearts be open to all around us, and may we recognize the goodness and beauty that you have sown in us and in the world. Turn us back to you, that we may always feel your loving presence, now and always. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Thank you very much, and good night. And I think I'm handing you over to Father Colin.
So thank you very much, Father Stanley. That was a very good, enlightening, and succinct way of introducing to us the ministry of reconciliation. That is our vocation and our mission. So remember, please take this away with you. And as a follow-up, we will certainly be looking into how we as a parish community can be able to be reconciled to one another. And we are thinking of setting up some kind of training courses for mediators, and to set up a kind of a platform and possibility for people to help resolve conflicts, disagreements, something like setting up the international mediation hub that Singapore is doing. So we are doing it at the parish level. So that would be something that we are looking into. If anyone is interested in this, please contact me. So thank you once again, and good night, and God bless of you, all of you, and have a good season of Lent ahead of you, especially with the Holy Week coming up. So thank you, God bless all of you, and thanks for all those who helped to organize this, for Raymond, Susie, Pauline, and all our speakers who help us, for the Stanley and Sundaresh Madam. Just give them a round of applause. Thank you. God bless all of you. Okay, good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Raymond.
Father.